My current project is a novel in progress. I have entitled it Dodging the Buzzsaw. It's a sequel to Wild Ride on a Seesaw, and some of the same characters that we found in Wild Ride are back in Dodging the Buzzsaw. We're going to see Lindy and his girlfriend Tanya, and we're also going to see Sheriff Picard and, of course, Hummingbird, that Chitimacha Indian who would not stay on the reservation. So here it is, Chapter 1. Lindy wasn't sure how many of the Buzzsaw's thugs had joined the chase. It was so dark in the frigging swamp. Out of breath, he squatted for a moment behind a clump of mangroves and listened. Judging by the sounds of their footsteps, he figured there must be at least 4, closing in. He looked behind him. Shit. He was backed up against the edge of a lagoon. A sliver of moon peeked from behind the clouds and shone above the open water, giving him a clearer view of his surroundings. 10 yards in was a hummock overgrown with pines, circled by a narrow strip of muck. If he took a chance and hid there, would the Shylock's muscle wade into the scum looking for him? He wished he wasn't wearing the one good pair of bally shoes he had left, the ones Tanya had sent him just before his release, along with his one pair of Hugo Boss threads. Lindy focused on the hammock and quickly realized that getting swamp slime on him wasn't the worst of his problems. Several dark mounds, long and scaly, stuck out of the muck. Alligators, asleep like dogs on the porch. His eyes swiveled back to his pursuers. One of them shouted, "Over there!" and bullets started flying all over the place. That was all the encouragement he needed. It wouldn't be the first time he tiptoed his way around alligators anyway. He hoped they wouldn't make it his last. You don't mess with them, they will mess with you, the old fart from the swamp had told him some 8 years ago. But it had never been clear to him as to how come the man's trigger finger was missing. Never mind that now, Lindy thought. He covered the distance to the hummock, doing a fast-forward version of the Kung Fu walk, slipped past the big gators and huddled behind a tree. The guns kept blasting away, but the goon's aim wasn't directed at him. It was off to his left, away from his hideout, on the other side of the water. He made a quick count of the muzzle flashes. 3, maybe 4 shooters. But they were going to town after a fat shadow that charged through the brush. Cut down by the gunfire, the dying critter let out a loud grunt, made an awkward somersault in the air, and plopped to the ground. It was a wild hog. "Hey, Frank, look at the son of a bitch," shouted the first gunman to reach the corpse, his flashlight shining over the animal's head. "I don't look like Lindy." Frank turned away and wrinkled his nose. "Stinks like it came out of a sewer. What the hell is it?" "Some kind of pig. Check out the tusks on that sucker." "Wild boar's what they're called," said a third man. "Used to hunt them back in Alabama." He looked at his companions. "Anyone's got a knife, I'll field dress it right here, and we can have us a hell of a barbecue." "What the fuck are you talking about?" Frank growled. "We didn't come here for a barbecue. We've been running around this goddamn swamp half the night chasing that deadbeat, and we let the fucking pig take us off his track. What do you think Mr. Buzzsaw is going to say when I tell him?" "Simmer down, man," the Alabama hunter said. "I was just joshing." "Do me a fucking favor. Don't make no more jokes, okay? Mr. Buzzsaw's paying us to find Lindy and collect what he owes. He don't give a rat's ass about pig jokes." The men stood around the dead hog, shifting their weight from one foot to the other, in the casual manner of folks unsure of their next move. Those holding flashlights swept the surrounding area, making lazy arcs with the light beams, but without showing an earnest effort to find anyone or anything in particular. During one of the sweeps, Frank noticed a gliding movement in the hammock. "Shine a light over there," he pointed in its direction. Lindy swallowed hard and ducked behind the tree trunk. A couple of the gators on the muck shook themselves awake and, head raised, ambled toward the water. "What's up with them?" one of the men asked. "Holy shit," Frank cursed. "They're coming at us." "I think they caught a whiff of the pig's blood," said the Alabama hunter. "It's like their supper bell." Frank gave a forward wave of his hand. Let's get out of here. They can keep the stinking pig. He turned away from the carcass. Which way's the road? Lindy watched the men walk back the way they came. He sighed with relief. It was the first break he got since his release from prison. In the month before he finished his time, all the talk in his cell block was about Y2K and how it was going to bring bad luck and all kinds of problems. He hadn't paid it any attention. Just crazy jail talk, he thought. But from the moment he hit the street, everything had gone downhill. Well, maybe not everything. Tanya had kept his Hugo Boss slacks and Bali shoes. But mostly the business with Buzzsaw, the Shylock, wanting back his $1 million, plus 7 years' worth of interest the loan shark rates. Talk about classless. Son of a bitch knew his deal went sour in the coke. The collateral went up in flames. The heartless skinflint also knew Lindy had done 8 years to the day of state time. Hard time. And still, he had his collectors waiting for him outside the prison gates demanding payment. They even took the $20 bus fare his warden gave him. Lindy stood, slapped the muck off the seat of his pants, and waded across the water. He reached the high ground, keeping his distance from the big lizards that busied themselves, biting off chunks from the pig's carcass. He couldn't help but feeling a touch of sympathy for the dead hog, riddled with bullets and turned into a feast for the hungry gators. Lindy made the sign of the cross, a childhood habit he'd picked back up after he landed in jail. A saying his father often muttered came to him. He repeated it in a whisper. There, but for the grace of God, go I.